Hello, and welcome to the We Are Power podcast. If this is your first time here, the We Are Power podcast is the podcast for you, your career, and your life. We release an episode every single Monday with listeners in over 60 countries worldwide, where you'll hear personal life stories, top-notch industry advice, and key leadership insight from amazing role models. As We Are Power is the umbrella brand to Northern Empowerment Awards, which celebrates hundreds of female role models and advocates every year. This is where you can hear stories from all of our awards alumni and stay up to date with everything MPW Awards and We Are Power. Hello and welcome to a very special edition of the We Are Power podcast. I'm delighted today to be joined by superstar Nazir Afzal OBE, patron of the Northern Empowerment Awards advocacy list and the advocacy community, which we set up last year. Multi-winner of MPW Awards, actually. 2018 commended to that Rob Mukherjee. He pipped your crown, that lad.
Somebody else has to win something.
I know. And then 2022, you won the inaugural Disruptor for Good award as well, which I remember you trekked up from the Midlands for to attend that evening. And
I think you were saying, you have to come. Why does she want me so desperately to be there? Now I know.
But thank you. Thank you for so many things. Thank you for being here today and joining us on this special edition. But thank you for all of your support, unwavering support from year one, even when it was a ridiculous idea. What are we doing?
It was never ridiculous, Simone. But we thought we were making massive progress across the sector, across the country, if not across the world. And saddest thing is that we're going backwards over the last year or two, and I think we're going to have to talk about that.
Yeah, and I think that's where, you have an amazing story and you've achieved and you're so accomplished. You're the Chancellor of the University of Manchester. I've got a few sort of questions just before we get in. If you had to go back as a student, what would you study?
Well, I studied law, and then actually going back, I'd probably study law again, simply because I just use that as a tool. Law gives you critical thinking. It gives you advocacy skills. So actually, they were really useful for all the other things I've done in my life. Had I done what my family wanted me to do, was to become a doctor, I'm not entirely sure that I'd have achieved so much.
And you have multi-roles. I think people call them portfolio now, don't we?
Absolutely. That's one word for it. I'm just really, really privileged. I wake up in the morning and every hour of every day is, like, for example, right now, is full of things that I want to be doing. That I go to bed and I do the same thing tomorrow. So you mentioned Chancellor of the University of Manchester, which is a phenomenal role. I mean, Manchester's 29 in the world. It's 26 Nobel Prizes, 48,000 students. And, I have the privilege of graduating everybody and meeting all these people who are much cleverer than I am. And then I'm chair of the Lowry, which is, I know we're in Liverpool right now, but the Lowry is the National Theatre of the North. And, it's a phenomenal institution which is growing from strength to strength. I'm chair of the Church of England's National Safeguarding Panel. This little Muslim boy from Birmingham is chair of the Church of England's National Safeguarding Panel. And before that, I was chair of the Catholic Churches. In fact, I founded the Catholic Churches Agency. I'm a board member of the Creative Industry Standards Authority, which again was created by me and my rest of my board members. I'm just delighted to be doing stuff in all different areas of society and hopefully trying to make a difference.
And what binds all those roles? Is there a common thread or is there a common purpose that you take into all of them?
Yeah, all of them are about ensuring people are safe and people can flourish. And that's it. It's simple as that. So, safeguarding speaks for itself, but some of the other roles are not just about safeguarding, about ensuring that people can flourish in the workplace, can look for, their potential can be maximized. When I do those graduation ceremonies, Simone, in front of me there are hundreds and hundreds of students who are graduating and thousands of parents and family members and the rest of it, and they are the future. And I have, in the few minutes I have with them, the ability to motivate them, inspire them. And they motivate, inspire me. And every time, I've dealt with the worst that humanity does to each other. And there I'm in a room working with the people who are delivering the best. And it's real honor and a real privilege. So that's it. It's the fact that we can somehow motivate and inspire the next generation, but also ensure that the current generation is kept safe.
And what you snuck into the conversation there, this is the We Are Power podcast, but formed out of the organisation that was Northern Power Women and Northern Power Awards.
Yeah.
How northern are you? Because you're a Brummie lad.
Yeah, I was born. Look, I always say I was born in Birmingham. I then spent 20 odd years in London, so I was nurtured in London, but I was made in Manchester, and I was made here in the northwest of England. So I came here in 2011. When I arrived, I knew nobody in the north of England, absolutely nobody. And now, I get people asking me for selfies and stuff. It's just, it's absolutely phenomenal. And I'm running the Chancellor of the largest university in the north, largest theatre in the north. I'm just in a really, really good place. But that's because everybody here has made me feel so welcome. And the opportunities that exist, I've been lucky to take them, but they all exist for everybody else too.
And I think to have and create opportunity, we have to create great environments, inclusive cultures, openness. And at this year's Northern Power Women Awards, you stood, you gave time like you always do for us, and you stood on that stage and you spoke in advance of announcing the 2025 advocacy list. And you had out some quite stark facts out there, didn't you? But that was, in the feedback that we did post the awards, that was one of the standout moments of the evening, because not just because of the harshness and the severity of how you talk, but actually that's it motivated people into action.
I always say that allyship is a verb, not a noun. So there are lots of organizations that say, I'm an ally. What's that mean? Unless you've done something, it means nothing. And so absolutely, we've got to be able to demonstrate what allyship really stands for. And that is about taking action. And so, I'm glad you reminded me of what I did what I said at the We Are Power Awards last year. I did something similar recently with of all places, the British Cardiology Association. 2,000 cardiologists, 19% of them were women. And the women had told me beforehand that there's no plan for making that 30% or 40%. And so whilst I thought I was going to be saying things, so nice things about heart surgeons, actually I went in there and I told them off. And the president said immediately afterwards, all right, next year's conference is all going to have to be about how we ensure gender equality. So the only way you get people sometimes to change their approach is by being blunt. And you're absolutely right. It has to be evidence-based. So when I said at the MP, your awards last year, 1 in 4 women suffer domestic abuse. 1 in 5 women are sexually assaulted. 2 women every week are killed by their partners or ex-partners. 10 women every week take their own lives because of the abuse they're suffering. More than 3.1 million British adults were sexually abused as children. That's 1 in 20. So any room you go into in this country of more than 20 people, just think of that, what you have in front of you. That is the pandemic that will outlive the one that we went through. And the evidence says, unfortunately, that this is not getting any better. If anything, it's getting worse. At the same time, all the efforts that you're making to try and restore equity or bring equity and inclusion, there's pushback on that. And so, hang on a minute, we're supposed to be fixing things and yet we're going backwards. I don't understand any of that. So the evidence speaks for itself. The stories, I'm really honored, privileged, Simone, where I've sat with the victims of horrible crimes. I've sat with the families of people who've lost their loved ones in terrible circumstances. And you can't leave a room like that not changed. I remember when I did the review of London Fire Brigade, which is, a cultural review 3 or 4 years ago. I remember one day I was sat with, these people who were not previously had never said anything about what was going on. There were 9 women, one after another, some of them in very senior roles within the fire service, and they were in tears telling me about their experiences within the workplace. And at the end of that day, I kid you not only had all the tissues that we'd bought run out because they'd cried themselves silly, really, given how much they were talking about. At the end of that day, given what I've been through, I had to ring my therapist to get some counselling because of just the stories I was hearing from them. And that's what we're dealing with. Most people suffer in silence, as they say. They don't talk about what it is they're experiencing. But when they get the opportunity to talk about it, it is extraordinary how many people are suffering. And that's why what you do is so important.
But there is a pushback. We are, as a small micro organisation, and it's not about us, but, it'd be remiss of us not to talk about this because there are so many conversations that we are having in the margins at the moment and wider and open. And it's, we can't do that. We're not doing that. We can't do anything to do with that. We can't play there. We can't put our money there. And it's hard sometimes to understand what's the difference between dropping it and using it as an opportunity to go in a different direction, or being fearful of what's happening the other side of the pond. Is this all about what's happening in America?
Well, I mean, yeah, absolutely. What's happened in America has given people pause for thought. Yeah, absolutely. But what you've described there, for me, is a failure of leadership. It's a lack of courage. It's I was always brought up to think you must do the right thing. These people don't want to do the right thing, and they're using excuses, Simone. If they're telling you, as you've indicated, that they don't want to carry on with the relationship with We Are Power for whatever reason, or blaming what's happening in the States, they don't have to follow. They have to lead. And the other thing to be said is that whatever happens in the United States, they have 4-year governments. So who knows, in 3 years' time there'll be a different government. Are they going to go back and pivot back? What message do they send to their own staff? This is what I keep getting. The whole point of what you do is about generating safety within the staff, about ensuring that people within organizations are able to advance equity, inclusion, all the things that you know. The message you're sending to them by saying we don't want to relate with We Are Power organizations like you is we don't believe in you anymore. We don't like you. We don't trust you. This is their own staff. You don't need to move on. And what will happen, and I bet you this will happen, I don't know if it's happening already, is they'll start losing the staff. The people who are there because they thought their organization believed in them, that gave them the opportunity to progress, to develop, will start thinking, I need to go somewhere else. That this is a toxic environment. Is that what they want?
And nobody wants it. We all want the best people within our organizations, don't we?
Yeah.
We all want that. But not every organisation is ignoring it, isn't it? I think was it Walt Disney?
Yeah, no, Warner Brothers.
Sorry.
One of my hats is Creative Industries Standards Authority. And so I'm engaging with the BBC, ITV, all these organisations. And Warner Brothers, I sat down with Warner Brothers and I said, are you feeling the pressure? Yeah, they said, we're feeling the pressure. So what we did was we got rid of the D and the E and we're doing the I. So we don't have diversity and inclusion. Diversity and equality is inclusion. So we're just going to focus on the inclusion. There you go. Like magic, they're still doing everything they were doing and putting the accelerator down, actually, and doing more of it rather than pushing back. If they can do it, and they're a multi-billion-pound company, why are these other companies saying to you somehow this is going to damage their brand in America? That's nonsense.
And that's what it always strikes me. It's just being a bit mischievous, creative.
Creative is the word. Creative is the word.
Disruptive for good, and just using a different language. Because every decade or so, or probably less than that, twice a decade, acronyms change, don't they?
100%.
How many acronyms have we had about inclusion, equity, equality, diversity? So surely, I'm all for pause for thought. I'm all for that because there's no doing that one thing all the time. It's not always the right thing. No. There's always a good opportunity to change and revisit and review.
Absolutely,
but not I think chuck things out.
Most people don't even understand what they're talking about. I was going past a sign when I was in London recently, and it was one of those signs were on a floor where it might be slippery, and the sign was "Be careful, this flooring might be slippery when it's wet." And somebody scrubbed it all out, and written down, "DEI is dead." Since when is health and safety DEI? All right, carry on. Slip on the bloody thing. This is what we're up against. Is people don't even understand what they're dealing with. And the important point is that there's a business case for being inclusive. There's a business case. You are ensuring that your staff develop, that your staff progress, that your staff stay with you. That's what you're doing. You're ensuring that they're safe. You're ensuring that they can, they can be phenomenal citizens. So if you don't do any of this, what are you saying to them?
And I think that's the thing. We have seen some leaders, haven't we? We've talked about an example there, but we have seen some leaders in isolation, but there doesn't seem to be as many as you would have hoped.
No, I mean, I'm glad you're doing the advocacy list. It's phenomenal that you're doing that. Maybe you need to do a leaders list, top of my head stuff, where these people who are really making a difference at the most senior levels in organizations, who are pushing back against the pushback, we need to recognize and celebrate them. This is quite a lonely thing, being a leader. Very often all you get is negativity. And what you do with the awards is recognizing the value that people add. We need to recognize the people who are pushing back against the pushback, because they need to be valued for what they're doing. And that will hopefully encourage other people to think that way. But also, we're not going to do it on this podcast, but we need to call out those who are being the weak, who are lacking courage, who are, for whatever reason, deciding that they will not commit to this and are somehow revoking their membership or their support for what you're doing. Because quite frankly, unless you call it out, they think they've got away with it. And of course, their staff may not ever hear about it. So their staff may not ever hear that they've got no relationship with We Are Power anymore. And you're being sensitive, and you don't want to publicly say these things. However, there's a message to staff, which is, if they don't value us, what hope is there of them valuing you?
And I think it's interesting because we're born out of Northern Power Women, Power Women Awards. We have the We Are Power umbrella so that it can, because we know a lot of organisations we work with are from the north in and from represented in. So we create that wider community because it's a place for, so whether it's we're enabling opportunities, whether we're shining a light, we always want to focus on what we can do. Yeah. So there's always a positive spin in what we do. And I think there's a part, I think, sometimes in educating. Sometimes people see the awards as just one night and a fancy dinner and a beautiful trophy and all that kind of things, which of course it is, but it's so much more than that. It's the wraparound. Everyone who comes through the awards, we have a fantastic mentoring program that sits with it. So not quite everyone's a winner, but there is an element of,
more so than any other award I can think of. And most awards I go to, we say to the nominees, well, you're a winner too, and they'll go, no, you didn't really mean that, did you? But with We Are Power, yes. Whenever I go to dinners, and I'm really lucky that I get the chance to do so, the nominees feel as proud of being a nominated person as the winners do. And that's a trick. Well done.
Do you know the secret is WhatsApp groups? Sometimes it's building those sub-communities, and I think that's what we've done over the years, because that's when we set up the first advocacy list last year. In some ways, it was a frustration because right from day one, we've always been all genders. That's always been really important. This has never been sort of a single agenda. This is not a woman's problem to solve, right? This is let's get everyone in round the table at the sofa. Everyone can do something. Everyone has the power to do something for good. That's 100%. And I think, and even from that first year when I opened and said, it's all genders, the awards were open to all genders, and I got some kickback. Why are men involved? But this is the whole point, isn't it? You have to look at statistics to know the majority of leaders are male. So we're not going to go and finger point and go, do this. Just, this is all part of being part of the change. But it's that you actually talk, sorry, Nazir, you talk about power is both a burden and responsibility. Yeah. It's something but how can leaders use that power for good? Because we've seen it work with our advocates, and we'll come back.
Yeah,
we'll
absolutely.
Come to that.
I get real energy from other people. So the fact that you've got really passionate advocates who demonstrated that they are going to be advocates, I come away feeling happier, thrilled, more energized by just being in their company. I get so much out of that. But at the same time, what can I say? I said to you a moment ago that women are suffering. And they have been historically, and they continue to do so. Invariably, there's a man who is the problem. Not all men. Let's make it very, very clear. The vast majority of us are not abusers or sexist or whatever. But misogyny is rampant in society. We know that for a fact. So men are also the answer to women's empowerment. And the fact that you have an advocacy list and you've demonstrated that there are men here who are prepared to stand up and say, I'm going to fight for women's equity. Not because I got daughters. I always got really pissed off when Rishi Sunak used to say when he was Prime Minister, "I'm doing this for my daughters." No, you're doing it for everybody's daughters. You literally don't make it about your own daughters. It's because it's the right thing to do, and that's why we do what we do. And men and boys, unfortunately, we're suffering too. Not getting away from it. Men are more likely to take their own lives. With everything that's going on in the world right now, men undoubtedly feel in some way respected, neglected. However, that's not because of women. That's because of other men. And undoubtedly, you mentioned I think it's 7 out of the top 100 FTSE companies has a woman CEO. So here we are in 2025, 7 out of 100. Yet we're meant to be, and 51% of the population is women. So we're some way, and yet that seems to be too far. So absolutely, men and boys have to confront the issues that we're facing and the challenges that we have, but also what we do. And the fact that we, in some way, shape or form, are ensuring that women can't achieve their potential. And that's why it's important to engage with all genders and not just, for women to work with We Are Power.
And there's no one sticking plaster. There's no one, because it would just be a sticking plaster. Yeah. But I think often, and I think from a leadership perspective, or people sometimes think that it's too difficult. So we think that's, in some ways, some of the pushback at the moment. We'll just get rid of that because it's easy because it's not going to help. It's not going to hurt our. We don't want it to hurt our bottom line. There's almost a blinkered approach to that.
Absolutely. I mean, when I go back to that report on London Fire, you can go on. It's online. One of the things I found with the misogyny, it was the first organisation that's ever been found to be institutionally misogynist. And the reason why I said that was the experience of the women I mentioned earlier on, but also that women were telling me that some male firefighters, when they were doing home visits, would, when the women in the house had turned their backs, go through their underwear drawer. Right? I thought, what? In 2023, whatever that was. And so women did not have confidence that they felt safe when approached by a male firefighter. So one of our recommendations was body-worn camera. That every firefighter should have body-worn camera because that provides reassurance to anybody they engage with, but also to the person wearing the body-worn camera. And the Mayor of London put X millions behind it, and they now have body-worn camera. Do you remember when Sarah Everard was murdered by I won't even name the guy, but the former police officer? Immediately afterwards, the ridiculous reaction of the Metropolitan Police was to tell women, if you're not happy with the officer in front of you, flag down a taxi or a bus. That's what we've got to. We're telling women, if you can't trust a police officer or a firefighter or somebody in a position of power responsibility, flag down a bus or a taxi. Well, we're in a bad place, aren't we? Now, in order to fix that, we can't it's that definition of insanity. You can't, if you do the same thing, you get the same response. What you do is different. What We Are Power does is different. And that's what people should be engaging with, organizations and businesses should be engaging with, because that's ultimately how they ensure not only that the women working for them and the women they engage with are safe, but the men feel safe, that the men feel that they can ensure that women progress within their organization. It is a win-win for everybody. And yet, for some reason, organizations, well, we know what reason. The organizations are sort of stepping away from it and thinking it's too hard or too difficult. If it wasn't difficult, then I wouldn't do it. I've been asked lots of times to do something I've done before, and I never do something twice because it's been done. So similarly, all of us, we all need to be thinking, if it's difficult, it's worth doing.
So how do we, because if not us, who, right?
Yeah.
And if not us, our listeners, our watchers, there's actions to be, it's deeds, not words.
Actions, exactly. Actions. I mean, I don't believe in, I was sat recently with, I won't even say who it was, a very famous person, and all the way this person was talking as if, everybody in the audience was thinking, you don't believe a word of what you're saying. It's like, you know the script, but you don't know the story. And too often, unfortunately, people in leadership positions know the script, but they don't know the story. And very, very often, their idea of engagement with their staff, for example, is the regular staff meeting, or by the way, we have a Teams meeting once a month, etc., etc. And somehow that's me engaging. No, it's not. We as human beings, we have empathy, we have sensitivity, the things that make us what we are, and that's what we need to be using more of. And it shouldn't be because of your daughters. It shouldn't be because of there's some penalty for doing so. It's because it's the right thing to do. And the more and more of us that speak up about this subject, as I said, not for today, but we need to start calling them out, those people who are not on the journey with us. But at the same time, those who are on the journey with us need to be valued and respected. And we need more of them to put their hands up and say, I'm going to carry on regardless. And as I said, the business case is there. It's not about it's not enough. The ethic, we know the ethical case, we know the moral case, we know the legal case. The business case is there for doing the work that you're doing. And so we got to keep repeating that mantra, Simone. The more we do it, eventually you'll get through. But there will be some people that you never get through to, and those are the ones that we need to work with.
100%. I think sometimes there's no point preaching to the converted, because actually you having to with your religious affiliations.
Exactly. This is the journey. This is what we do, and this is the world we've become now. Is that we live in our echo chambers, and so when you're on social media, the only people that you engage with are people who follow you, and you think somehow your whole view is based on people who think like you. Actually, break that. Yeah. Go and talk to somebody that isn't from your echo chamber.
Well, when we've had our advocacy dinners, and not disclosing the conversations we had, but one of the big things that came out of them was that it's the listening, isn't it? And being curious. Don't just assume you think you know, or be too afraid to be that advocate or to speak up. It's actually, it's the same thing. If it doesn't feel right, I always think it's a bit of the Nana test. Yeah. Would you say it in front of your Nana? Yeah. Would you have that behaviour there? Absolutely not. No. I think I'm always very proud that we will come from we've never been a rinse and repeat organisation. You may see that the awards, 10th year next year. It's a big year, right? And so one of the things I think sometimes you have to take when there's a situation like this, where sometimes it feels quite beaten down. The wonderful Becky Taylor, I see at the moment, has put a shout out. She's doing a great event for tech women in tech. And she's like, I'm nearly full, but I can't find the sponsors and the partners, and I'm barely going to break even. So she's just gone bold and put a GoFundMe page out. And I'm just like, 100%. Like, straight. But I think it's the same, is it? You can't be, we could go over here and keep waiting, waiting, build a field and it will come. Or we can try different things. We do different things. And I think one of the things that we are doing at the moment, you talked about the measurability and what gets done. Yeah. I've always thought, well, how do we measure the impact? Because people see the awards, one dinner, shiny dresses, all that. Not shiny, I don't know, maybe. But you see that. It's not just about that. It's about everything that sits around it. So we did it at the back end of COVID. So during the lockdown period, we did a whole bit of connectivity between your fine university, actually 13 universities across the north, because there was a bit of there was a lack of connectivity, wasn't there? True. Because we were all sent home, and I was really upset actually that you've got all these great leaders out there who want to have that give back, and the good ones, not just the ones for show, and then you've got the students who are suddenly living at home, maybe where they weren't expecting to study and develop and all that kind of thing. And we wanted to put that thread, that pipeline be through. So we innovated in that time. That was a really tricky time for the world. We did what we could do.
And what was the social impact?
So what we did is we originally measured it. It was, and I was like, what is that? What is this social value thing that people are measuring? And we used this thing called a TOMS. I can't even get it. There was acronyms for acronyms, but we got some help from a professional services organisation who helped ratify it for us. And it started off at $750,000. And what we'd done by just joining the dots and creating conversations. And I'm like, we've done this for years. We're good at it. We're northern. We're good at chatting. We care about people. We do things with purpose, and people want to pass on that skills and knowledge. We're now in excess of probably just short of 3 million in what we've created. But I think we're more. So we're using this opportunity now. Let's measure again. Let's 100%. Look now, because the awards were never factored into that. These were these mentoring sessions and
so it's only a tiny bit of what you do.
Yeah, so I'm excited about that, because actually if that's what gets noticed and that's in our hands to do, then let's measure it. And then sometimes we don't always shout about the great stuff that we do. Let's shout about it.
Absolutely.
Let's get all of our advocates, or everyone who's been involved in 10 years and beyond of what we've done, creating and building this community. Because this is communities of sub-communities. And let's share that impact and stories. And let's not have a humble brag about it. Let's brag about that.
I mean, there's a human touch as well, because 10 years ago, there had been somebody who was just leaving school, started working with you, or went to a mentoring session, who are now, senior leaders in whatever organization. That's impact too.
So tell us, actually. There's our shout out, right?
Capture them.
Tell us what you've done. Tell us where you've been. Tell us what, sometimes I've got a couple of podcasts tomorrow, and two of the people that I'm interviewing separately met at an MPW event, but went to school together, but never knew each other. So sometimes it's that, what does...
Connections.
I think Jasmine in the office calls it the invisible thread that you don't know is there till it's ready to be activated. I probably made that up now, but I'm going to take it anyway.
Take it.
But tell us, I think let's leave this podcast with the positivity that everyone can be part of this. Tell us let's measure, because sometimes that one thing, that one opportunity that you got, when I see the LinkedIn posts about, I did this and I was involved in that session, I've now got a promotion. Yay!
Yes.
I find about this stuff anecdotally. Please don't be shy
Capture
out
the
there.
evidence. We are very humble people, generally, human beings. We need people, for one day, we want you to stop being humble. Tell us how We Are Power, MPW, the word before, has changed you. And what you've done since, and who you've engaged with, and who else you intend to engage with. Let's capture those stories.
We've just started a campaign. Who knew?
Absolutely.
I love coming to these without a plan.
Let's capture these stories. At the end of the day, it's about storytelling. And, 100% it's about impact. For every pound that people have given you over the years, you've generated multi-pounds. That's what the value statement will show. So we need to demonstrate the more money that you give We Are Power, the more that society will get back.
It feels like a Bob Geldof moment, but without the money. But please, that can come too.
Ring those phone. What did he say? Pick up the phone. Nobody picks up a phone anymore.
But we still do that, Nazir.
Yeah,
we still do that.
Don't we? Or WhatsApp me. Don't WhatsApp me, by the way. By all means, show us how We Are Power has impacted on your life and the people around you. Also, talk about what you're going to be doing next. Let's capture that too, and recognize that we are generally, as a society, really good people. There are lots of bad people, but there's lots of good people, and we want to hear more of what good people are doing.
100%. Nazir Afzal OBE. Don't know why we bothered with notes, do we? We don't need those. Thank you so much.
Pleasure.
Thank you for always having our back. Thank you for helping us lead and drive the charge on this, and never giving up.
No, you give me more than I give you, so thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much for watching. Keep those stories coming in. It doesn't matter where you think it's something so small, because the sum of all those small parts add to something else, will motivate someone else, will make someone else think, oh my God, I can do that. And I can make the change. And that's how we stem the flow of what is currently happening.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for joining the We Are Power podcast. Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you next time. Subscribe on YouTube, Apple, Amazon Music, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Leave us a review or follow us on socials. We Are Power_net on Insta, TikTok and Twitter, or We Are Power on LinkedIn, Facebook, and We Are_Power on YouTube.